Now on Justice, ready to work.
We are going to do some great things over the next 8 years.
As bold as ever, the President of the United States gets down to the business of America. Tonight, more of my exclusive sit-down with Eric Trump, who says his father's sleeves are rolled up and he's ready to battle for us.
We need to fight for ourselves, and unfortunately, we haven't fought for ourselves.
And later,
I'm here to rise up. I'm here to speak out for rights for all.
Now, why do I get the sense this isn't the first time you've risen up?
I wade my way through a sea of protesters in the nation's capital to find out what exactly their problem is with our 45th president.
Well, he's filthy, he's vile, and he says nasty things.
Well, didn't Bill Clinton, wasn't he impeached for actually doing nasty things?
Come on, he's not so bad.
Well, you've known me for a long time.
The new administration, ready to go, and so is justice. Hello and welcome to a special Sunday edition of Justice. We are live once again in our nation's capital. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. We're only a couple of days into the Trump administration, and there is no shortage of things to talk about. And you'll see more of my exclusive one-on-one interview with Eric Trump, including his thoughts on his father's inauguration speech and some of the criticism from the left that followed. Also, some top Republicans here tonight to talk about what's on tap for the first 100 days under President Trump. But first, it's been a busy weekend, and the week ahead for the president promises to be the same. I'm joined live by American Conservative Union Chairman Matt Schlapp. All right, Matt, thanks for being with us tonight here in D.C.
Good to have you here.
Oh, well, it's good to be here. Let me tell you, I love this city, and especially when a new president is sworn in. A lot of excitement.
And you're happy those protesters have moved on.
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting being right in the thick of it. Right. You know, it was, it's really America at its best. I have to tell you, protest, it was peaceful, you know, it was all good, whether you agree or disagree.
That's right.
You know, this is America. This is what a democracy is. All right, let's talk about what happened with Sean Spicer. Look, lots of blowback from the mainstream media about how many people were there. And, you know, as I said last night, you know, the people didn't need to have security passes or tickets, and there wasn't, you know, all of the things that were needed 4 or 8 years ago. Talk to me. Does this matter? And does anyone really know the facts?
No, I don't necessarily know if we do know the facts, because the National Park Service doesn't really make all of this public. But if you look at the people who rode Metro and you look at the TV audience, it's a pretty good case for Donald Trump. The speech he gave is really the news, Judge, because it was a fantastic speech, the shortest in about 4 decades, and he really connected with people. And what I don't like about what happened in the press conference is we started talking about all these details about who was at the inauguration instead of the message out of the inauguration. And when it comes to Republicans, you know, a lot of Republicans don't like to go way down in those crowds. For the Obama folks, they were able to go there. There was no protesters, and they had a big crowd. A lot of Republicans, they don't like seeing all those protesters out there, and there were some nasty protesters out there.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you know, the bottom line is if you look at the impact that inauguration had on America, I think it's one of the biggest impacts we've seen since Reagan.
Okay. But, you know, I want to be clear. I mean, the Women's March was very peaceful, but the day before, it was not peaceful at all. I want to be clear on that. But, you know, you say something very interesting, and that is that the president's speech that I talked about last night in my open, you know, it was very clear, it was very direct, it was very, you know, Donald Trump. And it all kind of got lost in the discussion about how many people were actually at the inauguration. Was that a faux pas?
Yeah, you know, Mercy and I worked in the White House, and you get so frustrated when the press covers things.
You mean your wife,
my wife,
Mercedes?
Sorry, Fox's own Mercedes Schlapp.
Yeah.
But, you know, you get frustrated when they cover things incorrectly. And it happened on their first moment in office that they were having reporters cover things incorrectly. And what did Trump do? He said, look, there's a new sheriff in town. When you cover things incorrectly, we're going to correct the facts. Part of me likes that, but you also have to be careful that you don't step on this message, this great message that came out of the address. And my encouragement to the administration, they don't need it coming from me. Get right back on it.
But you know what? He had to say something about the bust of Martin Luther King.
Totally
it
agree.
had consequences, social, cultural,
Totally.
And they were wrong.
That's
they were
right.
just wrong. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this week. We've got Theresa May, Brexit, a renegotiation of NAFTA. Is that going to be happening?
Absolutely. And Trump has talked about his desire to renegotiate NAFTA, came out with a message this week. And what's really interesting with this national security team, General Mike Flynn, KT McFarland, and the whole team, you know, the newly confirmed secretaries, we know that Rex Tillerson's going to get through now. It's very likely he gets through without a problem.
But what about NAFTA?
The trade and foreign policy are just going to be linked. So he has a conversation with the Prime Minister of Canada. We have the Prime Minister of the UK, Theresa May, coming over to see him. It's all about trade. Two things to remember. NAFTA is going to be renegotiated. Everyone who tells you it can't be done or it won't be done, they're wrong. It's going to be done. And we don't even have a trade agreement with our biggest ally on the globe, the UK. And I think we're going to get one of those, and that's going to be transformational in Europe.
Okay, but UK or Canada?
Well, I think both. I mean, these are the two spheres that matter. We're going to make sure that we have a renegotiated NAFTA, and we're going to make sure that we have a deal with our most important ally in Europe. And when it comes to NAFTA, I think it's really important. I think it's bracing for this city, Judge. There's going to be a new way of thinking things, and American jobs are going to be the first consideration when it comes to these deals. No longer are we going to give away our jobs for national security concerns.
All right, Matt Schlapp, always good to have you here. Thanks for being with us. And don't go too far. You're coming back to join us on the panel later. So what can we expect from the first 100 days of the Trump administration? One of the biggest hurdles will be repealing and replacing Obamacare. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, addressed some of the concerns on that this morning. Take a listen.
Will President Trump stop enforcing the individual mandate?
Well, what President Trump is doing is he wants to get rid of that Obamacare penalty almost immediately because that is something that is really strangling a lot of Americans to have to pay a penalty for not buying
government-run health care. So he'll stop enforcing that mandate?
He may, but look, we want to make very clear to everyone that those who are relying upon coverage will not lose it.
Joining me now to talk about that and more, Republican Congressman and prominent President Trump supporter Chris Collins, Congressman from New York. Thanks for being
Judge,
here.
Welcome to my home away from home.
Okay, and it's good to see Congressman from New York here. All right, I want to talk to you exclusively right now about Obamacare and also recognize that you are part of that 8-member task force in Congress that has been talking about, you know, improving Medicaid for the last year, as I understand it. Yeah. So this is kind of your wheelhouse. Now, I was in the thick of that march yesterday, the Women's March, and it was almost like Chicken Little, okay? Right. The sky is falling. 18 million Americans are going to be without health care. Nobody was concerned about with President Obama that he promised and said, keep your health care plan, keep your doctor. They were only concerned that, you know, President Trump is going to make everything a nightmare. What has happened? What has President Trump done? He's already signed one document. Right. What did he sign?
Oh, that was a huge first step. When you think about all the costs that were passed on to businesses, individuals, what the executive order did was authorize the agencies now under his control to look at any tax, fee, or penalty given against companies, individuals, insurance companies, medical device manufacturers that would be a cost burden. Any cost burden on any state. And effective, that executive order neutered all of those negative.
So the executive order that the president signed that requires people to pay a penalty if they don't get insurance or pay insurance, the president neutered that.
Well, that's correct. But the most important piece, you remember how many folks were working 39 hours at a company and they had to get cut to 26 hours because the penalty kicked in for businesses at 30 hours?
Right.
Well, there you go. Now they can get back to working 39 hours. They don't have to work 2 jobs. They don't have to take a bus across town.
Okay. So now the question is, how do we get the revenue to pay for the coverage if we get rid of the fines? What do we do now?
Well, the fines and these penalties and the things like the 30-hour work week, which is we're destroying the economy. The fact is, the economy is going to be booming under Donald Trump. None of this 1.8% GDP growth. Right. Economic growth, you have to grow your way back to success. In growth, you have more income, less people on the welfare programs, less people on food stamps. You're reducing your expenses enough in many cases to offset this, and it's a healthier way for this country to grow our way into success with more revenue coming in because people are working. Businesses are making more products, then you throw in the international trade, get the jobs back that have been stolen. This is part of the game plan, economic growth.
So what do you say to those people, the women in the march yesterday, who say when the president signed this executive order gutting essentially the penalties that employers and individuals had to pay, they say that executive order took away their insurance? Did it take away anyone's insurance?
It didn't take away anything. For the next 2 years, Judge, we're going to have the same coverage. We're not changing Obamacare coverage for the next 2 years. That's in place. We couldn't change it if we wanted. That stays the same. So the scare tactics of Senator Schumer's and others saying we're going to make America sick again, that is Chicken Little. The sky is falling. It is not. That's all they are scare tactics. Coverage will not change under Obamacare. But now companies can band together, have health insurance where it makes sense for them. High deductible with HSAs, tax-advantaged HSAs. Businesses can go back to the chambers of commerce and get their insurance again. That was outlawed under the ACA. Many chambers of Congress lost half their members because that's where they were getting their insurance. When that was outlawed, they left.
What's amazing is that now you've got to get the message out that, for at least 2017 and I guess 2018, a part of it, that you cannot lose your health care.
Well, sure, but we have to count on the liberal press to deliver that message. They're too busy delivering the message that the sky is falling. Let's face it.
All right, Congressman Chris Collins, so good to have you here.
Always good to be with you, Judge.
All right, thanks so much. And still ahead, Ben Stein joins me live to discuss Donald Trump's inaugural speech and more. Plus, putting America first.
We've lost 70,000 factories since 2001. And our politicians do nothing about it. America has to start coming first again.
Part 2 of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump, the first since the first family moved into the White House. Don't miss it. And then...
Is the hate so deep that there's nothing the man can do?
No, the hate isn't that deep. If he takes affordable care, works with the Democrats, really gets a coalition...
They won't even show up.
I try to reason with protesters at the Women's March in Washington.